The blizzard swallowed everything. Kalira ran blindly through the white void, her wedding gown dragging through snow that reached her thighs. The silk had torn hours ago, leaving jagged ribbons that snapped like wounded birds behind her. Her bare feet had stopped hurting somewhere around midnight. Now they were simply numb, two frozen blocks that she forced to move through sheer desperation. She could not feel the cold anymore. That terrified her more than anything. Blood dripped from the gash on her temple where Varek's ring had split her skin. It froze against her cheek in dark crystalline trails. More blood seeped through the bodice of her ruined dress, staining the white fabric crimson where his claws had raked across her ribs. Her wedding night. This was supposed to have been her wedding night. The wind screamed through the mountain pass, and Kalira screamed back at it, a raw sound of defiance that was immediately torn away and scattered into nothing. She did not know where she was going. She only knew that she would die before she let Varek touch her again. 3 moons ago, she had believed in love. The memory surfaced unbidden, warm against the killing cold. The autumn gathering at the neutral grounds, where wolves from all kingdoms met under a banner of temporary peace. She had slipped away from her father's watchful eye to walk the moonlit forest, and she had found him there. Or he had found her. He had never given his true name. Neither had she. It was the unspoken rule of such encounters, where political enemies might brush shoulders without consequence. He called himself simply a wandering wolf, and she had laughed and said she was just a healer's apprentice. 3 nights. They had stolen 3 nights together while the gathering continued without them, walking beneath ancient oaks, sharing stories by hidden streams. And on the final night, in a clearing where moonlight pooled like liquid silver, he had kissed her with such reverent tenderness that she had wept. When the gathering ends, he had whispered against her lips, "I will find you. I swear it on my wolf's soul. Whatever it takes, wherever you are, I will find you and make you mine." She had believed him. She had returned home with his scent still clinging to her skin, with the ghost of his touch still warming her blood. She had waited for him to come. Instead, her father had come to her chamber with grief in his eyes and chains in his hands. House Valdris had fallen. Her mother was dead. Her brothers were dead. And Kalira, the last surviving heir of a defeated bloodline, had been sold to the wolf who had slaughtered her family. Varek of Thornfeld. The wedding had been a blur of incense and iron. She had stood before the altar in white silk, while the wolf who murdered her mother placed a claiming bite on her throat. The pain had been nothing compared to the death of every hope she had ever held. And tonight, when Varek had come to her chambers to consummate their union, she had seen the cruelty behind his handsome mask. He did not want a wife. He wanted a vessel, a breeder for the powerful bloodline she carried. And when she had resisted, when she had dared to push him away, his claws had answered. So she had run. Out the window, into the blizzard, into certain death, because death was better than one more moment beneath his hands. Now, as the snow reached her waist and her legs finally buckled, Kalira wondered if the wandering wolf ever thought of her. If he had tried to find her as he promised. If he would mourn when he learned she had frozen to death in a mountain pass, wearing another man's mark on her throat. She collapsed face first into a drift. The cold embraced her like a jealous lover. This is not so bad, she thought dimly. Peaceful, even. Her eyes fluttered closed, and in the darkness behind her lids, she saw his face one final time. The sharp jaw, the dark hair that fell across his brow. The wolf-bright eyes that had blazed with passion when he looked at her. "I will find you," he had promised. "You are too late," she whispered to the ghost. Then there was only silence. Kaelin had not meant to be out in the storm. The Alpha King of Arendor had left his war camp to clear his head, to let his wolf run through the mountain passes that marked the border between his kingdom and Thornfeld. Weeks of preparation for the coming war, and he was no closer to driving the blade through Varek's heart that the bastard so richly deserved. Varek of Thornfeld. The wolf who had butchered the noble house of Valdris in a single blood-soaked night. Who had seized their territories through murder rather than honorable combat? Who now sat on a throne built from the bones of better wolves and called himself a king? Kaelin had known the Lord of Valdris, had respected him, and he had heard the whispers about what happened to the Valdris daughter, the one who survived, sold to her family's murderer like cattle. The thought made his wolf snarl with protective rage that surprised him with its intensity. The blizzard hit without warning, forcing him to seek shelter in a shallow cave. He should have stayed there until it passed. Any sensible wolf would have. But something pulled at him through the howling wind. A scent. Faint. Impossible. Buried beneath layers of snow and ice and blood. But undeniably there. His wolf surged forward, seizing control before Kaelin could think. He crashed through the drifts in his massive black wolf form, following that thread of scent with single-minded desperation. He knew that scent. He had been drowning in the memory of it since the gathering. Moonflowers and honey, the woman who had bewitched him in 3 short nights, and then vanished like morning mist. The woman he had searched for in every corner of his kingdom, following whispers and dead ends until hope had curdled into bitter acceptance. She had never existed. That was what he had told himself. She had been a dream, a fantasy, a cruel trick of the gathering magic. But the scent was real. He found her half buried in a snowdrift, her body so still that for one agonizing moment he thought he was too late. No. 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 Kaelin shifted back to human form, heedless of the cold, and pulled her from the snow with desperate hands. She was ice. Her lips were blue. Her heartbeat was barely a whisper. But she was alive. He did not question why she was here, did not pause to examine her torn wedding gown or the wounds on her body. He simply gathered her against his chest and ran. His camp was 20 minutes away. He made it in 10, his wolf lending him speed that bordered on supernatural. His guards shouted questions that he ignored. He carried her straight to his tent, to the fire that burned in the iron brazier, and laid her on the furs beside it. Blankets, he barked at the nearest soldier. Healing supplies, now. As he worked to warm her frozen limbs, his eyes catalogued her injuries, the gash on her temple, the claw marks across her ribs, the defensive wounds on her forearms. Someone had hurt her. Someone had hurt his woman. The growl that rumbled from his chest was barely human. Then she stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glazed with cold. For a moment she simply stared at the canvas ceiling of his tent. Then her gaze found his face. Recognition flooded her features. "It is you," she breathed. "You are him." Kaelin's heart stopped. She knew him. Not as the Alpha King, not as the ruler of Arendor. She knew him as the wandering wolf who had held her beneath the autumn moon. "I found you," he said hoarsely. "I finally found you." Tears spilled down her frozen cheeks. "You are too late." "What do you—" Then the firelight caught the mark on her throat. A claiming bite, fresh, still raw and red at the edges. And beneath it, a scent that made Kaelin's blood turn to ice. Varek. Varek of Thornfeld had marked this woman, had claimed her, had made her his bride. Kalira saw the understanding dawn in his eyes, saw the horror, saw the moment that everything between them shattered. "Please," she whispered. "I did not choose him. I did not want. He killed my family. He forced me to. Please, do not send me back. I would rather die than—" Her voice broke into sobs that shook her entire body. Kaelin stared at the woman he had been searching for, the woman his wolf had recognized as mate from the first moment of contact, now wearing the mark of his greatest enemy. She was Varek's bride, and Kaelin had just committed an act of war by taking her. For 3 days, Kalira drifted between fever and waking. Kaelin's healers worked in shifts to repair the damage the cold had done to her body. Frostbite had claimed 2 of her toes, but her hands had been saved. The claw wounds on her ribs were stitched and bandaged. The gash on her temple was sealed with salve that smelled of pine and something medicinal. Through it all, Kaelin barely left her side. His advisors raged at him in heated whispers just outside the tent. His beta, a scarred warrior named Torvin, had laid out the political ramifications in excruciating detail. By sheltering Varric's bride, Kaelin had given Thornfeld a legitimate cause for war. It did not matter that Kalira had fled willingly. It did not matter that Varric had brutalized her. By the laws that governed wolf kind, she belonged to the wolf who had marked her, and Kaelin had stolen her. "Send her back," Torvin had urged, "before Varric learns where she is." Kaelin had looked at his oldest friend with eyes that glowed with predatory heat. "I will tear out the throat of the next person who suggests returning her to that monster." Torvin had not raised the subject again. Now, on the third night, Kalira finally woke with clarity in her eyes. She found herself in a tent far grander than she had realized during her fevered glimpses. Rich furs lined the floor. A brazier crackled with warmth. And seated in a chair beside her bed, watching her with an expression of tortured longing, was the man she had fallen in love with at the gathering. The man she now knew was Kaelin of Arendor, the Alpha King, the sworn enemy of her forced husband. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly. Kalira pushed herself upright, wincing at the pull of her stitched wounds. "Like I ran through a blizzard and almost died." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It did not reach his eyes. "You did. The healers say you should have died. That the cold had claimed you completely by the time I found you." He paused. "They cannot explain why your heart kept beating." Kalira's hand moved instinctively to her chest. "I kept thinking of you," she admitted. "When I was dying, I kept seeing your face." Kaelin's expression fractured. He rose and crossed to the tent's entrance, his back rigid with tension. "I searched for you, after the gathering. I sent wolves to every corner of every kingdom, looking for a healer's apprentice with moonflowers in her hair. I was not a healer's apprentice. I know that now." His voice was rough. "You were Kalira of House Valdris, and while I was searching for a phantom, Varric was slaughtering your family and putting his mark on your throat. You could not have known. I should have been faster." "Before what?" Kalira interrupted. "Before my father sold me to buy peace for our people? Before Varric decided that my bloodline was worth more than my life?" She laughed bitterly. "You could not have stopped any of it, Kaelin." He turned to face her, and she saw the wolf burning behind his eyes. "Your fate is not sealed. You are here. You are alive. And I will burn Thornfeld to ashes before I let Varric touch you again." "I am his bride," she whispered. "His mark is on my throat." Kaelin crossed the space between them in 3 strides and knelt beside her bed. "Do you feel this?" he asked hoarsely. She did. The incomplete bond between them hummed with warmth. Even with Varric's scar on her throat, something in her soul reached for something in his. "The bond," she breathed. "It never faded. I felt it pulling at me every single day." His jaw tightened. "My wolf knew you were out there, and when I caught your scent in that blizzard, he nearly tore me apart trying to reach you faster." Kalira's eyes burned with unshed tears. "What are we supposed to do?" "I do not know yet. But I know that you are safe here." Before she could respond, the tent flap burst open. Torvin stood in the entrance, his scarred face pale. "My king, riders from the east. They carry the banner of Thornfeld." Kaelin rose, his hand dropping to the blade at his hip. "How many?" "6. An envoy, not an army." Torvin's eyes flicked to Kalira. "They bear a message from Varric. He knows she is here." The color drained from Kalira's face. "Whatever message Varric has sent," Kaelin said grimly, "I need you to know one thing. I am not giving you up. Whatever war this brings to my doorstep, you are worth it." Then he strode from the tent to meet the riders, and Kalira was left alone with the terrible knowledge that her escape had just ignited a war between kingdoms. The Thornfeld envoy was a wolf Kalira recognized. From the shadows of Kaelin's command tent, she watched as the 6 riders dismounted. Their leader was tall and thin, with silver hair pulled back in a severe knot. Lord Morthen, Varric's uncle and chief advisor. The man who had held Kalira's arms while the priest spoke the binding words over her forced marriage. Alpha King. Morthen's voice carried false warmth. We come bearing a message of grave concern. Kaelin stood at the center of his gathered warriors, his posture deceptively relaxed. Speak your message, and be gone. 3 nights passed, our beloved queen vanished from the royal chambers. Imagine our relief when scouts reported seeing her carried into an Arendor war camp by the Alpha King himself. Morthen spread his hands. Return his bride, and we will overlook this breach of protocol. Is that what Varric calls it when he beats his wife bloody on their wedding night? A murmur rippled through the assembled wolves. Morthen's smile cracked. She is his legal bride. Whatever discipline occurs within their union is a private matter. Discipline. The word came out as a snarl. Get out of my camp. Morthen's warmth vanished entirely. You would risk war over a single woman? I would burn this world to cinders for her. The silence that followed was absolute. Morthen withdrew a sealed scroll. King Varric anticipated your attachment. He tossed the scroll at Kaelin's feet. You have 3 days to return what belongs to Thornfeld. After that, we will come to take her. The envoy rode into the darkness without another word. Kaelin retrieved the scroll, broke the seal, and read. His face turned to stone. He strode to where Kalira waited and handed her the message. To the thief who covets my bride, the woman you shelter carries the blood of the first wolves. She is the key to power beyond imagining. Return her within 3 days, and I will grant you a quick death. Refuse, and I will destroy everything you have ever loved. If I cannot have her, no one will. I have dispatched hunters to ensure that should she escape my grasp, she will not escape death. Kalira of Valdris will be my vessel, or she will be a corpse. There is no third path. The scroll trembled in her hands. The blood of the first wolves, she whispered. I do not understand. Your grandmother. Kaelin's voice was grim. Her bloodline traced back to the original pack. I thought it was only legend, but if Varric believes it... Torvin answered from the tent entrance. The first wolves could command wolves regardless of pack bonds. If Varric sired children with someone of that bloodline, he would have an army that no one could resist. Kalira finished. That is why he wanted me, not for alliance, for breeding. Kaelin's hand closed around hers. He will not touch you again. I swear it on my life. A howl split the night air. Not a howl of greeting, a howl of alarm. Torvin's head snapped toward the sound, the eastern perimeter. A guard burst through the tent flap with blood streaming from a wound on his neck. Infiltrators, at least 12. They are here for her. An arrow punched through the canvas wall, inches from Kalira's head. The fletching was black and silver. Thornfeld colors. Kaelin shifted in a heartbeat, his massive black wolf form shielding Kalira as more arrows tore through the tent walls. His warriors poured into the night, combat erupting across the camp. One assassin broke through and lunged directly at her. Kalira did not think. Her hand closed around the iron poker beside the brazier and she swung. The weapon connected with the assassin's temple and he crumpled. But there were more behind him. And Kaelin, still in wolf form, was fighting 3 attackers at once, unable to reach her. An assassin's blade arced toward her throat. Kalira raised her arms to shield herself, knowing it was futile. Then golden light erupted from her palms. The assassin flew backward, his body crashing through the tent wall. The light spread from Kalira's hands, racing up her arms, surrounding her in a cocoon of blazing warmth. She stared at her own glowing skin in shock, the blood of the first wolves. It was real. It was waking up inside her. The remaining assassins fled into the darkness, their mission abandoned in the face of power they had not anticipated. And Kalira stood in the ruins of the tent, golden light still crackling around her fingers, with no idea what she had just become. Through the chaos, her eyes found Kaelin. He had shifted back to human form and was staring at her with an expression she could not read. "What is happening to me?" she whispered. Before he could answer, the light flared one final time and Kalira collapsed into darkness. Kalira woke to the smell of smoke and healing herbs. She was in a healer's tent now, smaller and lined with shelves of glass bottles. She lifted her hands before her face, turning them slowly in the dim light. They looked the same as always, but she could still feel the echo of that golden fire beneath her skin. Dormant now, but undeniably present. "You slept for 16 hours. Kaelin's voice came from the shadows. He stepped into the candlelight, and Kalira's breath caught. He looked destroyed. Dark circles bruised the skin beneath his eyes. His jaw was shadowed with stubble. "The assassins?" she asked. "Dead or fled? We lost 4 wolves." His voice was controlled. "Torvin took an arrow meant for my back. He will recover." Guilt crashed over her. "This is my fault. Do not blame yourself for the violence of evil men." Kalira looked at her hands again. "What happened to me?" Kaelin chose his words carefully. "The first wolves were blessed by the moon herself with power beyond ordinary shifters. They could command any wolf, regardless of pack bonds. The bloodline was supposed to have died out 5 centuries ago, but the power can sleep for generations, waiting for the right vessel. And I am that vessel. It would seem so." The healers believe the dormant power was awakened by extreme stress. The blizzard, the injuries, the attack. His jaw tightened. The forced marking. Kalira's hand moved to her throat, to the scar that still ached with Varek's claim. "Can it be removed? The mark?" Pain flickered across Kaelin's features. "Not by any means I know of. But not in truth." Kalira met his gaze. "My body may carry his scar, but my soul never accepted him. When he bit me, there was only pain. When you touched me at the gathering, I felt—" "I know," Kaelin said hoarsely. "I felt it too." Then he withdrew a folded piece of parchment. "This arrived an hour ago." Kalira took the paper with trembling fingers. The message was from Varek's steward, a man named Colvin. "Lady Kalira, your escape has brought consequences. The king has ordered the imprisonment of every servant who attended you, claiming 1 aided your flight. 23 souls now languish in the dungeons, awaiting execution at the next full moon. Among them is Brina, the old nursemaid who raised you. He says their deaths will be on your conscience." The parchment slipped from Kalira's fingers. Brina, the woman who had sung her to sleep as a child, who had wept when Kalira was dragged to the altar and could do nothing to stop it. "He is using them as bait," Kaelin said grimly. "Because he is right." Kalira's voice was barely a whisper. "I cannot let them be slaughtered. Kalira. They are going to die. 23 people. And Brina." Her voice cracked. "Brina is the only mother I have left." She pushed herself upright despite her healing wounds. "What are you doing?" Kaelin demanded. "What I have to do. If I return before the full moon, you will be killed." Kaelin's hand closed around her wrist. "Did you not read his message? You will be his vessel? Or a corpse? Then I will be a corpse. At least the others will live." "No." The word was absolute. "I did not search for you only to watch you walk back into the arms of the monster who hurt you." His wolf bled into his eyes. "Trust me to find another way. Trust that you are not alone anymore." "What choice do I have?" Kalira shouted. "We make a new choice. Together." His hands cupped her face with devastating gentleness. "I love you." The words hung between them, trembling. "I loved you from the first night at the gathering. I loved you when I thought you were a healer's apprentice. I love you now, even with his mark on your throat, even knowing that keeping you might cost me everything." Kalira's hands rose to cover his. "I love you too. I loved you when I stood at Varric's altar and wished I was anywhere else. I loved you when I was dying in that snowdrift. Kaelin pulled her against him. We will save the hostages without surrendering you, he murmured into her hair. I do not know how yet, but we will. The tent flap flew open. Torvin stood in the entrance, his arm bound in a sling. My king, our scouts have returned from the border. And? Varric has mobilized his entire army. They march for Arendor as we speak. He paused. And the hostages, he is bringing them. Chained at the front of his column. He means to execute them on Arendor soil. Kalira's blood turned to ice. Varric was not just hunting her anymore. He was making her the villain of his story. The War Council convened within the hour. Kalira stood at the edge of the command tent, watching as Kaelin's generals argued over maps. She did not belong here. Every face reminded her of that fact. She was the enemy's bride, the woman who had brought war to their doorstep. We cannot meet them in open battle, a grizzled commander named Aldrich was saying. Varric's army outnumbers ours 3-1. If we do nothing, he will reach our walls within 4 days, Torvin countered, and he will execute those hostages where every wolf can see. Kaelin's voice cut through. Surrendering Lady Kalira is not an option. Then what do you propose, my king? We take the hostages before his army reaches our borders. Every head turned toward Kalira. She had not meant to speak. The words had simply emerged. Varric is using the hostages as a shield. He expects you to wait, to eventually surrender me. She met Kaelin's eyes. But he does not know about my power. Your power is unpredictable, Torvin interjected. Then I will learn to control it, quickly. Everyone out, Kaelin commanded. The generals filed out. When they were alone, Kaelin rounded on her. You offered yourself as a sacrifice in front of my entire war council. I offered a solution. You offered to die. I offered to save 23 innocent lives. Kalira refused to back down. Is that not what a queen would do? Kaelin's anger deflated, replaced by something like despair. It means everyone will want to use you, control you, breed you for power. You will never be safe. Then teach me to protect myself. In 4 days? In whatever time we have. She stepped closer. I am asking you to help me fight. His forehead dropped to rest against hers. And if every instinct in my body screams to lock you away somewhere safe, then you will have to trust that I am stronger than I look. She rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The bond roared to life. Kalira gasped as his emotions crashed into hers. Love, desperate and all-consuming. Desire, barely held in check. And beneath it all, fierce protectiveness. When they broke apart, Kaelin's eyes were blazing. I am yours, Kalira whispered, and I will fight beside you. A knock interrupted them. Torvin entered with a young female wolf at his side, covered in mud and blood. This is Senna. She escaped from the Thornfeld column. Kalira's breath caught. You were with the hostages? Senna nodded shakily. My lady, you need to know what Varric is planning. He has his mages working on a ritual. He means to use the hostages' deaths to power a blood curse, one that will bind you to him completely. Body, mind, and wolf. A forced mate bond, Kalira whispered. Senna nodded. The ritual takes place in the Valley of Bones, a sacred site where the first wolves made their original pack. He reaches the valley tomorrow night. If he completes the ritual, nothing will save you. Tomorrow night. They had 1 day. The Valley of Bones lived up to its name. They had ridden through the night without rest to reach it in time. Now Kalira crouched behind a ridge of ancient stone, staring down at the massive encampment sprawling across the valley floor. And at the center, on a raised platform of black stone, knelt 23 prisoners in chains. Brina was among them. The ritual site, Kaelin murmured beside her. The mages have been preparing it all day. He pointed to a circle of runes carved into the earth. Even without understanding the symbols, Kalira could feel the wrongness emanating from them. How many guards? Torvin asked. Too many, and archers on every ridge. Then we do not approach with a force. Both men turned to look at Kalira. Varric wants me. If I give him what he wants, we discuss this. I am talking about being a distraction. She outlined the plan. Varric expected her to hide. He would never anticipate her walking directly into his camp. While she held his attention, Kaelin's wolves would approach through ancient caves that honeycombed the valley walls. The moment I have Varric focused on me, you free the hostages. And what happens to you? Kaelin demanded. I will have my power. I can feel it now, Kaelin. The light. It responds to my will. And if Varric completes the ritual before we reach you, then you kill him anyway. And you kill me too, if you must. I would rather die free than live as his puppet. The anguish on Kaelin's face was terrible. Do not ask this of me. I am not asking. I am telling you what needs to happen. She softened her voice. You said we would fight together. This is how we fight. For a long moment, Kaelin said nothing. Then slowly, he nodded. You have until the moon reaches its peak. If the hostages are not free by then, I am coming for you whether the plan is complete or not. He pulled her into a kiss that tasted like goodbye. Come back to me, he breathed. Always. The walk down into the valley was the longest of Kalira's life. Guards surrounded her within minutes. I wish to speak with your king, she said calmly. Tell him his bride has returned. Varric emerged from the largest tent, his handsome face twisted with triumph. My darling wife, I knew you would see reason. I have come to negotiate. You have nothing to negotiate with. In a few short hours, you will not even remember his name. He gestured toward the ritual platform. Do you see them? 23 souls who will die screaming your name. Their blood will seal you to me forever. Kalira forced herself to walk toward the platform. Release them. They have done nothing. They helped you escape. Varric fell into step beside her. But I will give you a choice. If you submit willingly, I will grant them quick deaths. Painless. And if I refuse? His smile widened. Then I will make you watch as I take them apart piece by piece. Kalira looked past him to the hostages. Brina was staring at her with tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. Her lips moved silently. Run, child. Run. But running was not the plan. Very well, Kalira said quietly. I will submit. Suspicion flickered in Varric's eyes, but greed drowned it. Kneel. Kalira sank to her knees on the blood-stained stone. Through the crowd, she caught a glimpse of movement in the shadows near the prisoners, a flash of wolf-bright eyes in the darkness. Kaelin's wolves were in position. She just needed to buy them more time. Varric circled her slowly. 3 moons I have waited for this moment. You were always meant to be mine, Kalira. He gripped her collar and tore it down, exposing her throat. Now, let us make this permanent. His teeth descended, and Kalira unleashed the sun. The golden light exploded from her body with the force of a thunderclap. Varric was thrown backward, his scream of shock lost in the roar of power that filled the valley. Soldiers stumbled and fell, torches extinguished. The runes carved into the earth cracked and shattered. And in the chaos, Kaelin's wolves struck. They poured from the cave entrance, racing toward the hostages. Chains were severed. Prisoners were lifted. Within seconds, the first of them had vanished into the tunnels. Varric rose from where he had fallen. Kill her! He screamed. Soldiers rushed toward Kalira from every direction. She met them with light. Each burst of power sent bodies flying. She was burning through her reserves at a terrifying rate, but she did not stop. Not until the last hostage was free. Through the chaos, she saw Brina being carried toward the caves by a massive gray wolf. Safe. But Kalira's power was fading. The light that had blazed like a star was flickering now. Her legs trembled, her vision blurred, and Varric was getting closer. Remarkable, he snarled, but power has limits, little wolf, and you have reached yours. He was right. Kalira fell to her knees as the last of the golden light faded. Varek drew a blade. The ritual does not require you alive. Only your blood. He raised the sword. And a black wolf the size of a warhorse crashed into him. Kaelin. The two wolves tumbled across the ritual platform in a tangle of claws and fangs. Blood sprayed across the stones. Kalira tried to rise, but her body would not obey. Kaelin was larger, stronger, but Varek was cunning. Every time Kaelin pressed an advantage, Varek twisted away. A slash of claws opened a gash across Kaelin's shoulder. He stumbled. Varek lunged for his exposed throat. No! The scream tore from Kalira's chest, carrying with it the last ember of power she possessed. The ground beneath her hands began to glow. Ancient runes blazed to life across the valley floor, spiraling outward, illuminating symbols carved into the rock 10,000 years ago. The Valley of Bones remembered its original purpose, and it remembered the bloodline that had consecrated it. Both wolves froze as power older than kingdoms surged through the earth. Kalira rose to her feet. She was glowing. Not just her hands, but her entire body, suffused with light that seemed to come from the moon itself. Her eyes blazed bright gold, her hair lifted around her face, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made every wolf in the valley drop to their knees. Varek of Thornfeld, you have violated the sacred laws of our kind. You have murdered innocents. You have forced a claiming on an unwilling soul. You have desecrated this holy ground with blood magic. She walked toward him. The punishment is death. Varek shifted back to human form, terror on his face. You cannot kill me. I am a king. Your wolves have abandoned you. It was true. The Thornfeld soldiers were fleeing into the night. Please. Mercy. Kalira stopped before him. You showed no mercy to my family. No mercy to the servants you chained. No mercy to me. She shook her head. Why should I grant what you never gave? Wait. Kaelin's voice, human again, rough with exhaustion. He limped toward her. Let me. Kalira hesitated. He hurt you. He hunted you. He would have destroyed your mind. Kaelin's voice was soft, but the rage beneath it was volcanic. This is my right, as your mate. Kalira lowered her hand. Kaelin stepped forward, shifting as he moved. Varek screamed. It was the last sound he ever made. The dawn found Kalira sitting on the edge of the ritual platform, the golden glow fading from her skin. Kaelin approached, his wounds bandaged, his face drawn but his eyes burning with devotion. The hostages are safe. All 23. And Varek's army? Scattered. Word has spread about what happened here. Kalira shuddered. I do not want to command anyone. I know. Kaelin knelt before her. But that power will change everything. Let it. She met his eyes. I am done being afraid. He reached up to touch her face. There is something I need to do, if you will allow it. She understood. The mark cannot be removed, she whispered. But it can be covered. My mark where his once was. My bond replacing the corruption he forced upon you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You would bind yourself to a woman who carries another wolf's scar? I would bind myself to you if you carried the scars of 1,000 wolves. You are my mate. Nothing will change that. Then yes. Claim me. Make me yours. His teeth sank into her throat. But this time, there was no pain. There was only warmth. Light. Two souls recognizing each other. The bond roared to life, pure and whole and eternal. She saw herself through his eyes, the moonlit goddess at the gathering, the phantom he had searched for. The warrior who had walked into an enemy camp alone. And he saw himself through hers. The wandering wolf who had captured her heart. The king who had defied every law to protect her. When Kaelin finally released her, they were both trembling. Mine, he breathed. Yours. Always. Months later, in the great temple of Arendor, they were wed beneath a full moon. Kalira wore silver and white, her throat proudly displaying Kalen's claiming mark. Beside her, the Alpha King stood in ceremonial black, his hand clasped around hers. And beneath her gown, the subtle swell of her belly held a secret they had shared only with each other. Twins, a boy and a girl, the first children of the reunited First Wolf bloodline in 5 centuries. "I love you," she whispered as the ceremony concluded. Kalen pulled her close. "I loved you when I found you dying in the snow. I will love you until the stars themselves burn out." The wolves of Arendor raised their voices in a howl of celebration, and as Kalen swept Kalira into his arms, she finally understood what the wandering wolf had promised her all those months ago. He had sworn to find her. And he had. They had found each other against every obstacle fate had thrown between them. And they would love each other until the very end of time. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story.